Hello and happy World Book Day, Tanya Southey.
Hello, how are you?
I am good, I'm good. How are you? Good?
Yeah, really good.
Isn't it exciting? We're here to celebrate the launch of the Making Magic Happen Press new website.
Fantastic.
It is, isn't it? And you're one of our author shareholders, and that's why we just love coming in and showcasing each other, because we're all on author journeys, aren't we?
We sure are, and they're bumpy along the way. So it's good to have a community.
That's the thing. Authorship is a bumpy ride, isn't it? And it's a bumpy ride on different levels for different people. It's amazing. Such a unique experience. So, Sonia couldn't get sound earlier. She's saying she's got sound. I'm glad you got sound, Sonia. So we're going to do a little bit of an interview. I'm going to ask you a few questions. And if anybody has anything they want to ask, please pop it in the chat box and I will ask Tanya whenever we're finished, okay? So thank you so much for coming and joining us. Whenever you see me looking up, I'm just letting people in because people are coming in, so I have to give them permission. Okay, so Tanya, you started your author journey with Ollie and the Star Chaser.
I did.
Can you tell us about that, please?
So this book actually started, there's a little story that the grandmother, Nanu, tells Ollie in the book. And it almost started, I was doing a writing workshop, and it started with that little story, which I actually thought was going to be a picture book. I thought it was going to be a book for, maybe 4 to 6 year olds. Yeah. And just over time, I was like, what's the purpose of this little story? And this book took me a few years. It was like in my head. And then I went on a holiday to Broome and just saw there's something about the landscape up there that's just so majestic and powerful, and you can feel like you're a little speck on the earth, which you don't necessarily feel when you're in a city. And I realized what I wanted to write about was this little boy who was in grief about losing his grandmother. And it's a very subtle story about the journey he takes to come to terms with his grandmother not coming back. But it's written as an adventure story, so kids who haven't experienced loss have read it and they just think it's an adventure story, and kids who have experienced loss, it kind of provides a scaffolding to have a conversation about grief and loss.
It's an ingenious concept, and it's such a special book, and Kira loves it. She really loves it. And one of the things that we love as well is your daughter Jess is the illustrator. She is amazing. The detail, these illustrations, wow, they are just top high class. What was it like to work with your daughter on the illustrations?
It was interesting.
Interesting. Yes.
Good and interesting. I think in my other role, I do a lot of, I've been in HR and exec roles for many years, and I do a lot of like organization and systems dynamics. And I realized at one point when my daughter and I were arguing about like when I was going to get the drawing, that she had me in role of mother. And so in role of mother, I was just a nag. Then we sort of got in, one day I had this aha moment, and I was like, can the author in me have the conversation with the illustrator in you? And literally then I got the drawings done in record time, and they were always gorgeous. But what she managed to do was, having read the manuscript, I think the amazing thing for me was she really pictured the boy the way I did in my head. And then my dogs are characters in the book, so that was fairly easy because we've got so many photo references of the dogs. But Jess is very detail oriented, and I think she went back and remembered her own childhood, and like even when she was drawing Ollie's bedroom, she got into detail of like what was on his bookshelf and what kind of toys were sticking out of his toy box and stuff like that, which I think she really enjoyed doing. So it was great. Like besides the the little bumps along the way.
Yes, it was
yeah,
worth it, hey?
it was absolutely worth it, and really a very rewarding experience actually for both of us.
So much genius under one roof, I must say. Is there going to be Ollie 2? Or
It is actually, I really need to get onto that. So with Ollie, what I've sort of thought about with Ollie is how you hold difficult messages. So that I actually have started an Ollie 2, but I must really get to finish it. The second one's going to be about conservation, and Ollie and his family are going to get transferred from Broome to South Africa, which you can hear from my accent is where I grew up. And what I'm going to do is set him on a game farm in South Africa and explore the conservation element again through an adventure story, because Ollie goes on an adventure with a boy from outer space. And if you think of the concept of having a shadow, this boy is his light, and they're identical. And so I'm going to have the boy come back from outer space, and they'll do a conservation.
Such a deep message, and actually timely, because you know, we're all thinking about our earth more. We're become more aware of what we're doing to it, you know, especially, you know, it's amazing, like with everyone kind of being in isolation and things, that the world's healing, you know, the earth is healing. Isn't it crazy? It's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun.
And I definitely, sorry Karen, I definitely think, you know, the younger generation has more connection to that than we do. And I think that's right. As adults, as kids, you connect to nature, and you know, if you do still get to climb a tree or something, you know,
that's the thing. You're not allowed to climb trees at school or anything, you know. That's the thing. We used to climb them all the time. It was just a really fun thing to do. So the themes and the messages in Ollie books, the kids are learning without even realizing they're learning.
And that was the aim, to sort of hold a difficult message within an adventure story, and also the arc of his development. You know, he's being bullied at school, he's not confident, he's lost his grandmother, he's miserable, and then through the other boy, they go on a journey, and then there's a transition in the story where he sort of steps into himself.
It's beautiful. We'll share links to Ollie after our call today in the group. And Tanya, it's an amazing book, and I highly recommend it, especially if you've got somebody who's dealing with grief and doesn't you know, in your family. It's a really big gift, because through the words you get comfort, and it's a really important book. So can we transition on to Streetwise?
Streetwise, sure. So Streetwise is, they're two versions of Streetwise.
Yes.
Streetwise is really an accidental book. So after writing Ollie, I thought, what am I going to write the next year? And it was 2 days before New Year's Eve, and I just did a shout out on Facebook. I said to people, I'm going to challenge myself to write a poem a week. Give me your favorite words, and I'll use you know, a word a week. And I called it hashtag 52 words, 52 weeks. And I got about 96 words, and they were from all my friends, and they were really, some of them were motivational. And then I used to work in the beer industry, so I even got things from friends like beer as a word, or calf, and there were all these random words. And I got about 3 weeks into writing, and a very dear friend of mine who lives in London, her hobby is street photography, she phoned me to say Happy New Year, and she said, oh, you know, I really would love to pair my street photographs with a poet. So I said, well, let's do it together. And she said, no, that's your project, and I'm not going to step on your toes. And I was like, no, let's do it together. And she said, no, you're writing to words, and if my photos, you've got your plan. I really, you know, I wasn't trying to get in on your project. And I was like, you will get in on my project. And so we sort of reached an agreement where we wouldn't mess with the word of the week, but I would write the poem, and then she would send me 6 or 7 photos that she thought would go with the poem.
Yeah,
that's how we sort of navigated Streetwise. And I have to say, I think if she hadn't have come in, I probably would have given up. You know that, you kind of go, oh yeah, New Year's resolution, maybe you write 5 weeks in and then you miss a week or whatever. And she's extremely disciplined and diligent. So, by Wednesday I'd get a thing going, how's the poem? And I'd be like, oh God, bloody poem. But we kept it up. And then some very weird things started happening depending on the word of the week. We ended up almost finding like our weeks were syncing to the words. And then a very strange thing happened where there'd been a photo that we loved, but every week we'd said, oh, it doesn't really work. And so I said, I want to write to that photo next week and I want to write about loss. And she said, okay. And I said, good, you're getting a week off. And in fact, we were going to talk to another publisher about picking up the book. And I said, well, we've got the publisher's call next week. So, we will get on a call. And about 15 minutes before we were supposed to do the call, she sent me a WhatsApp message saying, I can't talk, sorry, my brother's passed away. And I was just like, oh my God. And the poem before was Grace. And so I was like, okay, and she had to get on the plane from London to South Africa, and she's quite a private person as well. And I said, oh, I'm not writing this poem next week. And she said, you will write this poem. It's our weekly routine. It's a thing of joy between the two of us. And you will write the poem. It was the hardest poem I've ever had to write.
Oh my goodness. That is straight to the root core. Oh
yeah.
My goodness.
And then after that, I never really had an excuse to not write. So it became like, okay, well, if we can write through that, it doesn't matter what kind of week we have. And so now we're on about week, what are we on now? About 52, 104. And so we're on week 120 of writing poems. So we did the whole of last year as well.
Yeah, you're in year 3 now, aren't you?
Yeah, year 3. Yeah. So last year became monthly musings, and we picked a theme for the month. Beautiful. And then this year we picked the week of, and we brainstormed like the hysterical things that we brainstormed, and it's just been such a bizarre year, bushfires and COVID, and trying not to write about COVID every week.
Yeah, that's the thing. You want to mix it up. Tina has said here, I've seen some of your Streetwise posts on Facebook. It was a great idea to team up with your street photographer friend. Like, it's just ingenious, and it's come together. And can you show us the Streetwise books again? You've got this first Streetwise,
the hardcover one. So
yes, it's beautiful.
There's a poem.
And I must also mention that Jess, her amazing illustrator daughter, also did the typesetting for this book. There's no end to her talents, I promise. She also designed the covers, and I love that there's the smaller one in soft cover and the more coffee table hardcover version as well. It's beautiful.
And she did the Making Magic Happen logo.
I was just going to come to this. She is, if anyone is looking for a logo, she will see depths that you will never even think of. She created our Making Magic Happen press logo, and it is the most amazing logo I've ever. Every time I look at it, I love it a bit more. Yeah. She also created our award, our award medals as well for our awards that we're launching today. This girl is amazing. So I know she's going to be super busy. We don't want to share. She's so good, so amazing, and an amazing illustrator that I highly, highly recommend. I really and truly do. She is just truly amazing. And you have her she's at your beck and call, Tanya?
Not quite. I have to get into a different role, because otherwise I'm just a nag,
Yeah, you shift the mindset thing. It's all about perspective.
I've got to say, can we be in this different role? Because otherwise she's like, Mum, I've got other work to do, because she's an artist herself. Like, I'm not just here for you.
You could fill up her diary.
I could, but she won't let.
So what's next for Tanya Southey, author? Did I see an amazing book cover this morning that popped into my inbox?
Yeah, so we've got Streetwise too, last year's poems that we busy typesetting and getting ready for publication. I'm also writing a memoir about growing up in South Africa in apartheid, and the anxiety that I grew up with, which at the time, 50 odd years ago, anxiety wasn't really diagnosed. And I think being an empath and really feeling the world, I probably suffered from anxiety very early on in South Africa. And so it's kind of a looking back at what it was like growing up in apartheid when you actually didn't even realize it existed, but somewhere subconsciously I knew that things weren't right. So it's very much from the perspective of a child in a system that was very unjust. And I got off lightly because of my skin color, but it still affected me. And so
it's going to be a fascinating read, but very hard to write. I imagine reliving it all.
It's not the reliving of it that's that hard, because in some ways going through that was a gift, because it actually has given me a lot of sort of, because you go through some stuff so young, you actually see things as an adult and you can try to do things better perhaps. So in some ways that was a gift, but I think it's the vulnerability of putting your own life out there. And it was very vulnerable even putting Ollie out there. I was like, who am I to write a book? Because I think growing up, I loved books. Books were my escape. And, Enid Blyton was just, if I could have just got on a plane to England and, lived with Enid Blyton, I would have been very happy. Maybe that's what your kids experience, Karen.
Yeah, they want a way out of it.
Yeah, I think I've always had this like, but people who write books are like really like up there, Yeah. And so I think there was a lot of me kind of having to figure that out myself, that it actually...
That's probably why you're a natural writer. You write so well, and because you've read so much, but also you whenever you're in kind of situations that are not, ideal, whenever you're younger, you kind of tend to go off into other worlds in your imagination. Do you find that?
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing was the apartheid government in South Africa believed that television would bring the collapse of the system and also would break down family Christian values. Which there's such contradictions in that. Yeah. And so I was 9 years old when South Africa got television, whereas, so I didn't grow up like the Australian kids my age, adults my age now. Yeah. I would have had TV and Sesame Street and all that kind of stuff. For me, books, it was books or the radio. We used to listen to series on the radio at night. So yeah, a little bit different.
So good, so good. And so, yes, lots of books then coming out. I'm glad to hear that. I'm just so glad to hear that. And you're continuing on with Streetwise 3 this year. And where can we find you on Facebook? Because this was it where you post your...
Yes, so Tanya Southey, author, on Facebook. And every Saturday or Sunday, just depending on how quickly I've written it, we post the poem.
Yeah, it's an amazing, like, for 3 years, every single week for 3 years. Like, there's a lot of things that can happen in your life, that can put a week out or whatever. But you have stuck with this every week, haven't you?
I know. I don't want to jinx myself.
No, you're not.
Yeah, we I think the hardest is when stuff like last year, my mother was in hospital for many weeks, and shock and that kind of stuff when stuff like that happens, and you kind of go, I don't want to write a poem this week. But actually, for me, it's really therapy sometimes to write the poems. So I just go into this other place.
Yes, and therapy for the people who read them as well. So it's kind of like a win-win scenario. And you're going to be part of our Poets Corner this evening at 5:30 Earth time, aren't you?
Yes.
I'm going to get to listen to some poems.
Yes, I'm going to pick some.
Yes.
In between the busy day job.
Yeah, you'll be switching from one side of the brain to the other today. You'll be transitioning. Tanya, thank you so much for joining me today for our chat. It's been amazing and insightful, and we'll be joining you on your journey, and we cannot wait to showcase Streetwise 2 and also your memoir and Ollie 2 when it's ready.
Yeah, I must get on to that.
It's going to be fun. Yeah, it would be fun. It'd be fun. So have you any last words for us, Tanya?
I think, just that writing is such a great hobby / career. You really can transport yourself into another world. And I know for me, writing is about meditation almost, and mindfulness. And I know when I'm really busy in my other corporate life, that's when, and I can't connect to that, that's when I know I actually need to connect to it even more.
Yes.
So it's really for me an amazing thing. I know other people, it might be exercise.
I find it a very much a meditative practice as well. I don't stop to do meditations. I meditate through writing. I love it so much. We've got some comments here I want to share with you. Tina said, thanks for the insight into your life and writing. I find it interesting and will look forward to reading your memoir when it comes out.
Oh, thanks, Tina.
Sonia said, amazing that you can do this and have a corporate life. There you go.
It's that swan, when you're paddling.
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of paddling going on.
That's it, because you recently just went back into corporate and you've been through in deep end with all of this stuff happening.
Because we work in an industry that's been highly impacted by it. So
but you're doing amazing things, and please keep writing. We need your words. So thank you so much for joining me today, Tanya.
And thank you for all your support, Karen. Like, you've been amazing, and I don't think I would have had the courage to do some of it without you. So
I'm so grateful to be on your journey. 100%. It's only the beginning. Take care. Bye everyone.